Afternoon, folks, and welcome to Irish Media Network Sports Update. I'm your host, Joe Caulfield, and welcome to Manchester United versus Liverpool, the rivalry. That's what we're talking about on this episode. And joining me this week is Carl Markham from PA Media to discuss it all. Carl, how are things?
Hi, good, thanks. You?
Very well, thank you. Really looking forward to this weekend. It really takes me back to the 90s and the noughties and when this rivalry was at its most bitter and vitriolic, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah, it has got that feeling of it. This sort of, I guess the real recent rivalry sort of dates back to when Sir Alex Ferguson came in at United and was looking at Liverpool winning all these league titles, all these trophies, and their club had been waiting 20 years to for a title win, and his primary objective was to topple Liverpool. And so that he said about that was his sole objective, and I think that's where the rivalry really started to build. And say sort of toward the late 80s, early 90s, we saw United coming up and maybe Liverpool tailing off a little bit, and then obviously through the 90s it was all United really, and into the 2000s the most mainly United successes, but the rivalry has been sort of there for sort of 20 or 30 years now.
Absolutely, and I suppose when you think about it, they're two huge cities. They are two hugely industrialized cities. They are neighbours, and they're two cities with the longest history and the most successful history in English football. I suppose it's really no wonder that it's one of the most bitter rivalries in English football. You're talking about, I suppose, the most recent origins of the current rivalry. Bringing it back, does that stretch all the way back to the 50s and beyond?
Yeah, it does. I mean, as you say there, the cities do have a lot of similarities. I mean, the two sets of fans might not wish to admit the similarities, but the two northwest industrial giant cities, Liverpool with its port business, Manchester with the industrial side and the textile industry, going back that far. They're a similar sort of people. It's a similar sort of city. So there's been an affinity between the two cities. There hasn't been that affinity between the two clubs, and I say it's been over the time we've seen peaks and troughs between Liverpool winning the league and then United winning the league, and then United winning the first European Cup, and Liverpool having to wait for theirs for another sort of 10, 15 years. So it has been a sort of an up and down sort of roller coaster of one city on top, one city, one team, one club on top, and then the next on top. But yeah, it does date back to several decades,
and it's thrown up some great almost direct comparisons. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but I am going to ask you to give me your opinion on three of those. Okay, I'd like you to tell me first and foremost, best manager, Bob Paisley or Alex Ferguson, and why?
Blimey, crikey! I don't know how you can possibly choose between the two of those. I mean, as you know, I cover Liverpool Day, so if I pick Sir Alex Ferguson here, I'm going to have Liverpool fans on my back from now for eternity. Two great managers in their own right. I mean, what Paisley achieved, 3 European Cups, and the side he inherited and then built and was such a great side, and I think set the benchmark for set the benchmark for that Man United side of the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. The Man City side of 2 or 3 years ago when they were that was the benchmark that Paisley set, and Ferguson matched it. Some would say he surpassed it with the amount of titles he won. It's difficult because they won so many trophies between them, and the achievements are so great, but so different in a way. So if I really had to be pushed, maybe looking at the era that he did it in, and maybe Ferguson has a slight edge, but it would only be a very slight edge. And I'm saying that with a great respect to Liverpool and all the Liverpool fans out there who obviously hail Bob Paisley as an absolute hero.
That's fair enough. As you could put it, he put them on the perch that Ferguson wanted to knock them off of, effectively.
He did. I mean, obviously, it started with Shankly rebuilding the club, and then Paisley, and moved through that famous boot room. But yeah, that was that side of the late 70s, 80s Liverpool had, was one of the great sides, and the achievements that were renowned for, winning those European Cups, three European Cups in that time, 4 in fact. But That was almost unheard of at the time, and that was all just Paisley's quiet management and just building on the foundations that Shankly had made, and then say it was continued, and then it continued with Fagan, and then Dalglish, and then the foundation started to crumble a bit when it came with a little bit of pressure from United, who then have built their own strong foundations.
Yeah. I can't make things any easier for you, unfortunately, because the next one I'm going to ask you to weigh in on here is who was the better captain? And it's kind of a more direct comparison, but Steven Gerrard or Roy Keane?
Oh, wow. Yeah, again, it is a bit more of a direct comparison, I suppose. I think from my point of view, I think Roy Keane played in a team at the top of its powers. It played in a great team, which achieved great things, and he was an absolute integral part of that. Such a man in that team, such a leader, such a captain, such a driving force for that team. But you look at the players he had around him, and it was a great team. He had a lot of great players around him, which made his job easier. I'm not saying he didn't make him any less of a player or a captain, but having those sort of players there made it a little bit easier. When you look at Steven Gerrard, and for the vast majority of his career, the players he was playing alongside, weren't of the calibre of those in that Man United team that Keane was playing in. But Gerrard elevated that team to something else, and I mean the amount of games he dragged them through, just by his sheer will and his performance and his quality. I think I would probably then have to side with Gerrard for that, just because of two great players, but you have to look at what he was working with at the time and the amount of individual effort that actually went into the successes that Liverpool had during his time as captain.
Very good, 1-1, and this brings it down to a tiebreaker, which is absolutely fantastic for me. Okay, greatest striker of all time, Ian Rush or Wayne Rooney? God, I'd say you're regretting coming on the show so much, eh?
Yeah. I think I would have to say Ian Rush. I think he was a real, he was a striker. Rooney was blessed with great talent, great individual talent, great skill on the ball, supremely skilled, had an eye for goal. But Rush was just this goal scoring machine who just rattled off goals. Every week. The partnership he had with Dalglish was just people said it was telepathic the way they worked, but just he didn't look anything as a player, but the goals he scored, just the sheer weight of goals he scored, his ability to score them, season after season. I mean, as they say, I think in that sort of era of playing against those defenders, the rules were a little bit different on pitches which weren't as great. You were getting clobbered all the time, from players in that time, and yet Rush still delivered season after season. So, not taking anything away from Wayne Rooney, had a great career at Man United, but I think for me, the sheer weight of goals and the sort of the seasons in which he scored them, I think Rush edges it for me.
Fantastic. So 2-1 to Liverpool in this segment. Talk about this weekend. It's interesting because United seem to have found a vein of form. And Liverpool, who had just such a complete season last year, seem to be faltering just slightly in 2021. It's such a short spell of time to say they're, having a slightly bad run of form. But coming into this game now, from both of those perspectives, United, I suppose, coming into it at the top of the league, and Liverpool with something really to prove. How do you think that's going to manifest itself on Sunday? Who do you think is going to win?
Well, who do I think I was going to? I'd start with who I think is going to win first. And you look at I think it was the last 9 meetings. There've been 6 draws. So when you're asking who do you think is going to win, the draw is always the favourite in these sort of games. And they've not been great games. A lot of them have been are built up to be. I mean, this one will be hyped to high heaven just because of Man United top of the league, Liverpool in second place going into the weekend. And we've sort of been here before with this, and we know that these games get hyped beyond all recognition. I think 2016 was the last time we had something on this scale, and it was the famous Red Monday where Liverpool hosted United at Anfield. It was Mourinho's first match as United manager at Anfield, and it was a dreadful game. It was abysmal. Mourinho came and wanted just to defend and got a draw with 35% possession or something like that, and it was terrible. So these games aren't always the classics you want. But
do you think Sunday will be like that, or they'll go for it?
Do I think who'll go for it?
Sorry, no. Do you think Sunday will be attritional, or do you think both teams will actually try to outscore the other?
I think, despite their momentum, United, I think, will arrive at Anfield with a slight degree of caution, just because Liverpool have this 67 game unbeaten home record, which is not for any reason. They've been unbeaten for so long, and I think. United are coming in full of confidence because of this long winning run they've been on. But I think at the back of the mind they'll still be thinking, this is still our greatest rival, still our greatest test, and Liverpool can't play as badly as they've played in the last 2 or 3 games, and Liverpool had a little bit of a break. United have played in midweek. Liverpool have had over a week to prepare for this, and some of their key players looked like they needed that break. They were starting to look a little bit jaded, despite Klopp has tried his best to manage their workload. But some of the forward players were looking a little bit jaded, just looking a little bit sharpness. You got Mane causing a lot of problems for people, but not scoring. He's not quite as sharp as he was. Salah's scoring goals, but he's not looking the devastating player that we know he can be. Firmino has started to come back after a sort of pretty ordinary spell for him, and I think maybe this week they've had a full week, a bit of rest, a lot of preparation. I think Liverpool will obviously see this as a point they need to prove not only to United but to the rest of the league that don't forget about us. We're still here just because we've had this little blip around Christmas. You shouldn't start to write us off at all just yet. And why should we? The record speaks for itself. There's no reason why we should be thinking just because they've had a little stumble against the likes of Newcastle and West Brom that that we should be thinking that it's over and it's finished for them. Every team's going to have a dip this season. Liverpool have remarkably had theirs late December, despite all their injury problems and their defensive problems. So I think it's going to be tight. I think if any team's going to attack, it'll be Liverpool. The onus is on them, being at home, despite there being no fans there, to take the game to United. I think United will want to play on the counter attack, and Liverpool like to start hard and fast and try and get a grip of the game and try and get it. They're so much better when they get an early grip on the game and they get an early goal. It gives them that platform to build. Whereas United, I think, will be quite happy to soak up a bit of pressure and try and hit them on the break.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lucas, I'm so happy to be talking about a Liverpool United rivalry once again. Thank you so much for giving us answers to such hard questions earlier on the programme. You picked 3 out of 4 for Liverpool, including the result this weekend. Let's see if you're right, and let's watch this rivalry continue to unfold. Markham, thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you.